Pokemon Garbage Green is a recent new ROM hack that came out, being made by the self-proclaimed world's worst nuzlocker. A spiritual successor of the game Emerald Trashloke, which many people including myself have played. Garbage Green was made with hardcore nuzlocking in mind and very specific gimmicks. This video will be reviewing the game, explaining what the game brings to the table, what worked, what didn't, comparisons to other games, and my own personal opinions on the game. Also, for the love of God, please remember, this is just my opinion. I'm not telling you what to think. Please don't get offended on someone else's behalf and make up your own mind. So, with that established, what is Garbage Green? Garbage Green, like Emerald Trashloke, is a ROM that revolves around the idea of making the vanilla games more challenging, not by buffing the vanilla trainers like Giano hacks, but instead by limiting the player to only having low-tiered unviable mons that would see little to no play in most other vanilla games. Emerald Trashloke left the vanilla games intact and changed nothing about it. The only difference was you, the player, could only get access to trash mons. Garbage Green takes this design philosophy a lot further, limiting the player far more than Emerald Trashloke ever did, but also revolving around the idea of gauntlets to make the vanilla trainers actually threatening, while also removing healing items and severely nerfing all the moves you get access to. The starters this time around are Goldeen, Paris and Slugma, definitely mons that you're not used to using in other games. I have nuzlocked with all 3 mons in this game and they all have their own quirks and positives to them, while also fitting the idea of a trashloke criteria pretty well. Slugma is obviously pretty underwhelming, especially as it evolves pretty late, but a fire type is good for all the bug and grass type that you will be coming across in this game, especially having access to flamethrower later on, which is a really powerful move, in its evolution with rock type and pretty good physical defense. I know magcargo is awful in online competitive play due to just how common water and ground coverage is, but in vanilla games like Leaf Green, there's so many normal and flying mons with awful coverage, making magcargo a pretty good wall actually. Flame Body also has use in burning opponents. Paris' gimmick is it gets spore, that's kind of it, along with being able to wall out certain water mons. Honestly, this is my least favourite of the 3. Goldeen is pretty solid with the least trash stats of all 3 and okish moves, getting waterfall for good water coverage and solid defensive stats. Obviously your rival still has the kanto starters like in vanilla games, so be ready for those. One of the main big gimmicks is that this game restricts you hard in what you have access to. Nothing was nerfed stat wise, but so many evolutions are flat out removed or heavily delayed, so you get access to them really late compared to normal, such as Goldeen now only evolving after Erika, Nidorans only evolve at level 25 and you cannot evolve to their final form with Moonstone, Ekans will only evolve at level 31, and psyduk will only evolve at level 49. Also, mons like Mudkip just don't evolve at all because apparently Marsh Stomp is just too strong even for trashloke standards. And on top of this, many high-end moves have been nerfed. Psychic, for example, only has 2 PP for example, so you just can't spam it like you could before. HMs also got nerfed heavily, so they're barely worth using. To be honest, in Gen 3, Surf was really overused, so that's kind of good. Oh yeah, EV values are completely removed from the game, meaning you cannot gain any, which is a pretty good feature, because I didn't like EVs. They're a really tedious mechanic. This takes Emerald Trashloke's gimmick to a whole nother level in terms of how limited you are, and while this game is streamlined for nuzlocking, be ready for a pretty big challenge as this game is not easy. I've nuzlocked Radical Red Hardcore mode, which is comparable to Emerald Kaizo, but still really struggled with this game, so be ready for that. Now the main feature of this game is the idea of gauntlets. What is this? This is a concept of making areas like dungeons from role-playing games. Once you enter a specific area, you're unable to backtrack, and you can only leave by progressing through this area and beating all the mandatory trainers there are. The game is balanced around this. For example, Nugget Bridge, once you challenge the rival, you're locked into this gauntlet and you have to beat him along with all the trainers in the following 2 areas to be able to leave. The hardest part about this is that you cannot fly or teleport or dig out of these gauntlets, and you cannot easily heal yourself. You no longer get access to any buyable healing items, save for a very small amount of limited berries that you can find. You have to really manage and pace yourself properly to avoid burning out mid-gauntlet and just running out of resources. These make up most of the changes that you can expect to see in this game. Now, let's get into the positives and the negatives, which there are quite a few of, and my own personal opinions of this game. The main positives are the streamlining features for nuzlocking. You no longer have to worry about grinding or optimizing your stats because the game does that for you by removing EVs from the game entirely. EVs are such a bad mechanic as they give you a huge advantage over the AI, while also punishing you for playing the game optimally. Especially as in Pokemon Leaf Green, there's no way to remove EVs. If you used your slugma to blast a lot of physical attackers, you just had to accept that your starter was permanently gimped with the useless physical attack EVs. And while no EV patches of the games do exist, it's better to make this an in-game feature instead. Rare candies being a part of the game is also a great feature as nobody with a life has time to grind. Now, you don't even have to cheat them in, you can just buy them in game, which is pretty nice. The other positive is the gauntlet concept and how this affects the game. This makes Garbage Green very different from other Nuzlocks and is a unique selling point. Yes, the vanilla trainers are such cannon fodder, and it's extremely hard to make them challenging as is without flat out buffing them, but forcing you to fight all of them in a gauntlet is a good way to make them challenging to fight. The main threat now isn't necessarily the power of the trainers that you fight, but the resource management and how you pace yourself. Some of these gauntlets are very long and have so many trainers you have to fight without being able to heal. You need to make sure you have enough PP for them. This changes how you play your Nuzlocks as no other games really do this, where you fight a strong trainer, heal up, then move on to the next one. Garbage Green is more a battle of attrition. Strategies will be different. For example, you'll want to prioritize learning multiple attacking moves, even if they're weak moves, because you need as much offensive PP as possible. If your Pokemon runs out of attacking moves, it literally can't attack for the rest of the gauntlet. Gauntlets are also quite creative, they do mix things up. In Lieutenant Surge's gym, you cannot leave until you beat everyone, and in Erika's gym, you're only allowed to enter with 4 mons in your party. But probably my favourite design choice is use of decision making in gameplay. This is good as it adds meaningful player choice and tension to your runs. Games like Dark Souls 1 did this, where you had the option to do hard optional boss fights for good rewards, or you could skip them. You had to choose what was best for you and weigh the risk and reward. Garbage Green has many choices like these, but it adds a lot of tension by imposing a time limit to these decisions. For example, in SSN, there are multiple pretty nice held items you can get, but you have to fight optional trainers to get them, but you can only get them on your one visit in SSN. You can't leave until you heal the captain, and once you do that, the ship will leave permanently, meaning you've permanently missed out on these items if you didn't get them already. Meaning you have to do these optional fights in the one visit you do, which will make the gauntlet harder as you have to fight more trainers on top of the mandatory ones. This gauntlet at the end of Rock Tunnel gives you a nice item, but you have to do it before leaving the Rock Tunnel gauntlet. Once you leave, you will not be able to go back to get the item, it will be permanently gone. Other gauntlets don't have time limits to them, so you can decide when you want to get the item. This is fun as it adds hard choices while rewarding those who put in the effort to get the optional items, and honestly, more games should do this in general. Now that I've talked about the positives, let's get onto the juicy part of the review, the hot takes. I have a feeling that the Pokemon challenges, parasocial demons, will get ruffled up by my opinions. His fans give Belle Delphine fans a run for their money when it comes to parasocial creepiness, and the sad part is, I'm not even exaggerating when I say that, unironically. I mean, like whoever you want to like on YouTube, but for the love of God, don't grandstand or obsess over anyone, or get offended over shit on their behalf, over stuff they most likely don't even care about. Don't simp for anyone online, not even me, as crazy as that sounds, because I'm thick as fuck. But obviously I'm not your friend. Be your own master, like Blade Wolf, and make your own decisions. I had some issues with this game that really detracted from my overall enjoyment. First of all, the entire idea of a trashlocke is flawed, and I didn't like how it was implemented in this game very much. Trashlocke is a concept that doesn't work as well as it sounds on paper, especially if it's limited to only the first 3 generations of Pokemon. Bad mons are unused by most people for a reason. They're just not very fun to use many times because they're so badly designed and so badly balanced. A Butterfree with literally no good stab moves is just frustrating as you can't even use it in the way it was intended to be used with special attacks. Many of these encounters are also especially trash and unbalanced even by trashlocke standards. Ledian is so bad it literally only has tackle for the majority of the game with his whopping base 35 attack stat. This leads into the main issue with this game. This trashlocke limits you far too much in what you can do. It not only removes a lot of the fun, but also kills the variety and replay value of this game, of what it could have had. Most of the mons in this game are so bad that you will literally have almost no incentive to use them, other than sacking. Lickitung, for example, has usable stats and nice stab moves, so you will be using that in a lot of fights when you get it, but Beldum is almost literally worthless, outside of like 3 battles that aren't even that hard to begin with. And no, you can't evolve Beldum, so it just does nothing in the run. Delibird, which you get the first route, literally has no value outside of like early game and such. Combined with many of the encounters being useless and unbalanced compared to others, the lack of variety is my biggest complaint. This game takes the first 3 generations, which isn't that varied compared to other recent ROM hacks featuring 5+ generations, and it just slashes it in half, maybe more, meaning you don't get access to many mons at all. The first 3 areas in the game literally only have 3 different Pokemon per area, and each area has encounters that are plain better than others. There's no reason not to just reset for Route 1 Unknown every run and get Psyduk or maybe Spearow Route 2. You'll be getting those 2 encounters just most of your runs, meaning you'll be starting the game with almost the same encounters almost every single time. And even the other areas early game only have like 4 different mons max, meaning it's very likely you'll be getting very similar teams every single run. Not to mention that most of these mons are just plain boring to use as they don't have any good moves at all. They feel very similar to use. You'll be spamming the same 40 base power moves for a long time, which also reduces your ability to come up with unique strategies, such as how in Diglett Cave, the only Pokemon you can get is Dunsparce, which is a mon that carries you basically every single run. You'll be using it every single time you play the game, which gets a bit boring. When I first played this game, I was very impressed and had a lot of fun, but after 5 attempts of nuzlocking, that fun quickly went away and I found myself getting very bored. A trashlocke with such limited content and variety is such a novelty that really wears off. After a few runs, I felt like I had experienced everything the game had to offer. Hell, you barely get any TMs to use at all, giving you even less options for customization and choices to vary your strats, as there's no longer any viable TMs in this game. I've already used most of the encounters in this game in my first 5 nuzlocks and just can't be bothered doing more runs because I know I'll be getting very similar encounters again. Another feature is that this is probably the most linear Pokemon game that I've ever played. It's akin to Final Fantasy XIII, where the game is basically just a hallway that you can't backtrack out of for a lot of it. While this does help for balancing and such, it also removes the exploration and non-linearity which I enjoyed in other games. This is very jarring since the last game that I played, Emerald Row, is a complete opposite, as that game is completely non-linear, with absolutely no limits or boundaries to where you can go on the world map straight away, which is just very different. So with this established, what do I really think about this game? I will say that your mileage will vary. I'm not a fan of the trashloke concept and got bored of it very quickly, but your opinion may vary. I think this game is at least worth a shot from everyone, as if nothing else, it does have some good qualities and some unique ideas. You may well enjoy this game more than I did, and that's okay. For me, this game is just okay, which is a shame because the gauntlet focused gameplay with decision making for optional challenges and nuzlocke streamlining is very well done, but the sheer lack of variety and repetitiveness with available mons, caused by being limited to the first 3 generations, and the game being way too heavy handed in how limited you are, really killed the longevity this game has. In a game that's already really short as is and doesn't even have a post game, giving me even less content to do in this game. Like, yes, you can do the vanilla post game if you want, but it's basically all over the place and incoherent, as it's basically completely unedited from the vanilla game. It's no longer a trashloke at that point. I feel like a trashloke game like this, but with all 8 generations, with less limitations of what mons you can get and what mons you can evolve, but with harder trainers to compensate, will really work wonders for this game in the future. You keep the design philosophy and the difficulty while also providing far more choices, variety and replay value, and just more fun to the player. That's my recommendation if the creator himself cares and wants honest feedback, because that's another point I want to make. Because of the extreme parasocial nature of Pokemon Challenges fans, and the fact that many of the small content creators blatantly try to suck him off and worship the ground that he treads on, mostly for clout, most of them are going to be yes men who don't provide honest feedback and criticism and just want to stroke him off for views. I'm going to be real and say what I really think. Overall, if I were to put this game in my ROM hack tier list I made, I would place it in maybe the bottom of B tier or maybe the top of C tier. This represents games that certainly had positives to them, but I just have no interest of playing again. They've really worn out of their novelty for me, but feel free to rate Garbage Green wherever you want, and feel free to tell me your own opinion in the comment section, even if you disagree. I actually like talking with people with different opinions to me, as long as you're not being salty about this. But this concludes my opinion, and with that, I am now officially done with this game. I will move on for good. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.